when I put things out there, hey, I'm 800 days sober, or hey, here's some tips on how to get through IAPA if you're on a sober journey, or even if you have, if you're an introvert or deal with anxiety in social situations, let me give you these tools. Let me tell you what I've been through my experience, and hopefully that will benefit you. And if I can save a marriage, a career, a family relationship, uh, a life from being honest about my experiences, then putting myself out there is completely worth it.
This episode is brought to you by NewView.
NewView is a team of attractions experts providing an all-in-one reporting suite for attractions businesses.
Their reporting solution empowers attraction leaders to make well-informed decisions based on real-time data.
NewView also builds slick websites that elevates your digital guest experience and provides strategic support to help you with booking systems and all of your IT needs.
For more information, go to newview.com. That's NEW-VUE.com.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros Podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. I might get sued for saying that.
Maybe by Tony the Tiger.
But how are you?
Well, I'm fantastic.
All right, and you own the trademark to that.
If I don't, I should soon. I will.
17 A's.
So I got a question for you.
All right.
Have you ever gone to a park where you were served by elves?
Have I ever gone to a theme park?
Yeah.
Where I was served by elves? You know, it doesn't come to mind, but if I thought for a while, maybe I could think of some time. But no, I actually don't think I have. What about you?
I have not. And I don't think the people that dress up as elves, when you're getting your picture taken with Santa, I don't think they count.
Well, I've never done that, actually. So,
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Why do you ask?
Because today we get to hear some amazing stories from our guest, Clara Rice. And one of those happens to be, without too much of a spoiler alert, when she was at a place in Finland where the team members, the employees where they were elves, and they never broke character, she said, but there was a story beyond that I want people to wait to hear. But that's why I was asking if you've ever been to a park where you got served by elves.
I figured that was the reason. And that story is all the way at the end of the interview. So if you want to hear it, you want to listen to the entire interview, which guess what? Guaranteed you're going to want to do anyway. Clara Rice is the director of global marketing for Adirondack Studios. She has been in the industry for many years. Her career story is so fascinating. The messages that she shares are so inspiring. We talk about wellness. We talk about mental health. We talk about burnout. We talk about so many. She talks about. We asked the question. She shared so much. You and I listened and
right.
It all in. And it was just such a phenomenal conversation with a phenomenal person.
One of the things I really appreciate that she talked about was transparency. And if anybody listening has ever seen one of her posts on LinkedIn, you know exactly what we're talking about, because she kind of puts it all out there, right? She's got lots of insight and lots of advice for people, and just a lot of experiences that she wants to share that helps other people kind of tell their stories as well. So just a super important message about transparency.
Mm-hmm. She also shares the difference between having your workplace and your worthplace, which of course we will let her explain on what that means. But I thought it was just so inspiring.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that she talks about is building a marketing department from scratch. Seems like she's done it a couple times. So who knows, maybe she'll do it again in her career, but super fascinating to kind of hear about that process and what it's been able to lead to.
Excellent. So should we head to the Adirondacks and get to this interview with Clara?
Only if we can sit in one of those chairs.
If I do, I won't be able to get out. Especially the really big, like novelty ones that are photo ops and places. Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Hey, Clara, we are so excited to have you on the Attraction Pros podcast today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Living the dream. How about you guys?
Absolutely. Living the dream. It's a little chilly here in Chicago, but I think most of the country is probably experiencing similar weather as well. But aside from that, doing great. So to kick this off, Clara, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background and your career, and we'd love to know how you got into the attractions industry.
Yikes, all the detours and byways of my career could take the whole hour. But I grew up in the DC area, Alexandria, Virginia, and that's kind of where my love of this industry began, even though I didn't know it. My father would every Saturday, it was Mother's Morning off, and he would take me to the Smithsonian. And so we would go on our little field trip and take the metro down to the Smithsonian, and I'd see all the wonderful museum content there. And that's really what sparked a love of cultural attractions in that way. Didn't think much of it. Moved all around as a kid, all up and down the East Coast, suburbs of New York, suburbs of Atlanta. For undergrad, ended up at Grinnell College in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa that had 1,300 people, so tiny, tiny school. And then from there, had the good fortune of getting into Yale School of Drama, where I got a Master of Fine Arts in Theater Management. I was one of the only people in my class who were willing to live somewhere other than New York or Los Angeles. So about a week before graduation, I got a call from the executive director of Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park saying, you got a job. So I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, sight unseen, and became the associate executive director. They won 2 Tony Awards while I was there, which was super fun. But they told me that it would always be kind of a postdoc experience. So you'll be here for 5 seasons, 6 seasons, you're going to get bored. We're just going to tell you that right up front. And I appreciated the honesty. So I figured I'd be one of those kind of theater producer nomads that just went from nonprofit theater to nonprofit theater around the country. But this thing happened that I didn't expect, which is that I fell in love with Cincinnati. There's a lot of reasons for that. That could take up a whole podcast, but suffice it to say, between the arts and the sports and the walkability and the cost of living and the connections that I had made, I absolutely loved Cincinnati and wanted to stay. So I told them, hey, I'm ready to go. They said, take as long as you need. And you still have a job as long as you want it, which was very kind. And at the time, I had gotten very involved in the community, and I was the president of the mayor's young professional advisory group. He called it his kitchen cabinet. His name was Mayor Mallory. And as such, he would have me go around to different constituencies and do focus groups on what these people wanted to see in Cincinnati in the next 15 years or so. Backing up, I knew a little bit about the industry because Jack Rouse was the chair of the board of the Playhouse. So I'd heard a little bit about what he did and that he dipped into the theme park industry and the museum industry. I was intrigued, but I was kind of one of those people that thought attractions like Disney and Universal just kind of sprout up out of the ground. Like there's nobody, they just magic, Tinkerbell waves her wand and they just poof. So I didn't really, think about it as a career pathway. But getting back to these focus groups, I went to one in a church basement. And I sat next to a woman named Louise Spiegel, and she was 85 years old. And she had a ton of ideas for what she wanted the city to look like in the next 15 years. And I could tell because of her age, she hadn't really been listened to. And so I sat there and soaked in all her ideas, and the knowledge was amazing, and the history that she had with the city was fantastic. And she said, I really appreciate you listening to me. Let's have lunch. And I said, okay. let's do it. So the next week we had lunch and she's there with her graphs and charts and the government should be doing this and private enterprise should be doing that. And it was fascinating. And I said, I would love to help you, Louise, but I've been looking for a job in Cincinnati for 6 months. I'm already at the biggest theater in town. I'm going to have to go because I can't find a job here. So the next day I'm sitting at my desk and the phone rings and in my position, I got a lot of calls from vendors wanting to sell to us. And I get a call from this Keith James guy. And he says, hey, I'm Keith James. I'm like, okay, nice to meet you. How can I help you? And he said, I am the president of Jack Rouse Associates. And I was like, oh, hi. How may I help you today, sir? And he said, Louise Spiegel is my high school best friend's mom. And when she tells me I need to meet someone, I need to meet someone. Can you be in my office tomorrow? And I came into his office the next day and I had a job 3 weeks later, which lasted 16 years. So the advice that I give to next gens and people coming into the industry is always treat people with kindness and never underestimate anyone, because you never know when the person you're sitting next to in a church basement could be the ticket to a dream you didn't even know existed for yourself. So I was hired to be an assistant project manager for a dinosaur theme park, natural history museum combination in Dubai. I was going to live in Dubai for 3 years. And that was in 2008. So if we all know what happened in 2008, my dinosaur project went extinct. So I had to figure out from there how to not make myself redundant. And I leaned back into my secondary skills, which at Grinnell College, no matter what your major is, you must be a good writer. And so I was like, well, I can probably do something with that. And I looked at our competitors' websites and I looked at their social media, and this was 2008, 2009. There was not much there. And I said, this is how I'm going to create this pathway for myself and open this door for myself. By 2015, I wasn't doing project management anymore. I was full-time in marketing, and it's been kind of my meal ticket and kind of my wheelhouse ever since.
That is so fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really do.
It was a lot, I know.
No, I love it. And especially that story about, sitting in the church basement and how that can really lead to things. You just never know. And I think that's absolutely true. I would like to go back, though, to those times when you were with your dad in the Smithsonian. And I'm curious if there's memories that you have way back then that still sort of serve you now in what you do in terms of how you market or how you reach out to people that maybe even were lessons that you learned back then.
I've learned a lot of lessons from my dad has been a big professional mentor in life. And we actually, if you visit my LinkedIn page, we actually about a year ago sat down and kind of just for posterity and to have it as forever. And some of his best pieces of what I like to call dad advice. So some of my favorites are to make sure you're separating your professional goals from your personal goals. And I talk about this a lot. I talk about it in my LinkedIn. I'm very honest on my LinkedIn, just preparing you. I talk about the difference between your workplace and your worthplace, and the importance of keeping those separate, keeping your professional goals separate from your personal goals. If you don't know what your professional goals are, to a certain extent, that's okay. Just be the best version of you that you can be. And that was his lesson to me. One of my other favorites is don't fire yourself. Let somebody else do it for you. So that gets back to imposter syndrome and thinking you can't do something, and just go ahead and do it. And then if someone fires you or tells you you can't, deal with it then, but at least go for it first. Don't count yourself out before you've even gotten into the race. living below your means was an example he always showed, that there's two ways to build wealth: earn more or spend less, and spending less is easier. So that's definitely a way that I've led my life. And we'll probably dig into this a little deeper, is finding something you enjoy doing before you retire so that you have something to retire to. He struggled with this. He knows that a little bit. I think he retired 4 times before he figured it out. And I look at, my husband is a brilliant artist. My daughter's a brilliant artist. My daughter does dance. And so they have things in their lives that they can look forward to doing when they retire. So it's important to have that kind of that kind of endpoint, that kind of goal for your life when you're done with your career.
That's all amazing advice. And the first one you gave of knowing your, what is it, your self-worth,
your workplace
your
versus
workplace and your
place.
Your workplace. That's something I see with a lot of people who maybe they don't even realize that they're struggling with it. They anchor onto a very big brand, within the industry, and they say this is my identity. I identify with this location, this company, and it kind of just morphs into that. But their individual identity is kind of hard to really identify, possibly even for themselves as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a really important message. They all were very important messages. And speaking on theme of your father, what was the moment that he was most proud of you? And you shared with us prior that it was not your Yale graduation, which one might think. So curious as far as what that moment was.
My father was a world traveler before world traveling was even a thing. So he worked for the US subsidiary of a French company. So all of my friends when I was little were French kids. He was going to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Rio in the 80s. You can only imagine looking at what Dubai looks like now and what it looked like in the 80s. So there were two moments that really struck him. One of them was that back in the 80s, there was this commercial, I think it was an American Express commercial, where the father and the daughter are sitting at the restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center. And the father goes to pay the bill. And the daughter throws down her gold Amex and says, "No, Dad, it's on me." And that was one of the things that my father was really excited about me reenacting one day, because it meant that I had made it. And so on my engagement dinner in 2013 in August, he went down to put his credit card down, and I slapped his hand and said, and the look on his face was priceless. The other, being that he was a world traveler, some of my memories from my youth, this tells you how old I am. I'm totally giving it away. We lived in the suburbs of Atlanta, and there was a Delta office right down the street. And he would always take me with him to go get his paper ticket. So I would go down to this, and they knew me at this point because my father was there all the time. And they would hand me this ticket, and they wouldn't tell me where it was for. And there'd be this big ceremony of me looking at the ticket and seeing what the next exotic destination. And they're telling me, "Don't lose the ticket. Don't lose the ticket. That's the only copy we have." It's kind of hard to think about in this day and age. So when I got silver medallion for the first time, that was a huge moment for me and my dad. The fact that I'd gotten to a point where I had status. And if you look at this without context, it seems very superficial. But as his only child, and as a female, with a visual disability, I'm monocular, the fact that he still believed in me enough that these were the milestones was very special to me, and that I'll always hold dear to my heart. We have one more goal left. I haven't gotten there yet. I'll be sure to let you guys know when it happens. But I can tell you that there will be a great celebration, and it'll be something that we can share together, and I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back so you can share that with us when it happens. But Clara, one of the things I'm curious about is you talked a little bit earlier about your LinkedIn post, and I know I've enjoyed following your wisdom and the things that you've been willing to share. And it also goes with what you were just talking about in terms of context, because I think you do a really nice job of putting context to the way people might be feeling or the way that you're feeling. And so other people can say, yes, I'm feeling that way, or, this is something that I'm going through. And I'm curious, that can be a very vulnerable thing to do, to put yourself out there like that with the stories that you share and those pieces of wisdom and advice and insight. And I'm curious where that willingness and desire comes from to share those type of things and the kind of responses you've gotten from people, on the on LinkedIn.
So you're right. I am very honest, and that comes from the fact that I have benefited from the honesty of others. So it was really seeing people who have dealt with depression and anxiety and burnout and dealing with those things in maybe not the healthiest ways, that and seeing professional, you have a stereotype of people who are maybe struggling with alcohol or who have burnout or having anxiety. You sometimes have this vision of in your head of who they are. And for me, as I was going through my sobriety journey, seeing professional women who had dealt with that and came out the other side and were willing to share their stories publicly was critical to my success now and my ongoing success. So when I put things out there, hey, I'm 800 days sober, or hey, here's some tips on how to get through IAPA if you're on a sober journey, or even if you have, if you're an introvert or deal with anxiety in social situations, let me give you these tools. Let me tell you what I've been through my experience, and hopefully that will benefit you. And if I can save a marriage, a career, a family relationship, a life from being honest about my experiences, then putting myself out there is completely worth it. And I have gotten some lovely private direct messages on LinkedIn saying, hey, I've been there, or I'm struggling with this with my son, or hey, can you extrapolate on this one piece of advice that you gave because it really resonated with me. I cannot tell. I probably had 100 people at the last IAPA come up to me and say how much that honesty meant to them, which just gives me the motivation to keep putting that honesty out there because it's resonating with people.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's probably a good segue into your involvement with the TEA Wellness Council. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that as well.
Sure. So the Wellness Council was created because there were a few of us who came together at Inspire 2024 and did a panel called When Things Go Wrong, a Candid Conversation. And funny story. So we were told that this was going to be geared towards emerging professionals, those just getting into the industry. And so we had kind of geared our message around how to prevent burnout early and often, and kind of entry level topics. And then we walk into the room and there's executive creative directors from Disney and VPs from this supplier, and we ran out of the room and decided amongst ourselves that we need to reframe this because we can go a step further and talk about not only how you prevent self burnout, but how do you create communities to thrive in your workplace. So it was very well received. And we got a lot of comments afterwards. Why are we limiting talking about such an important topic when burnout is on the rise at an unprecedented level? why are we only talking about this 30 minutes a year? And so we kind of looked around the TEA, the association, and the programming, and we saw that there was one person doing a session at SATE Europe, and there was one person doing a webinar over here, but nothing was coordinated. So we thought, how much more power could all of this have an impact if we created more of a coordinated effort, initiative, curriculum about it? So that is how the TEA Wellness Council came to be. It is comprised with people who just have passion for the topic. It's also comprised of people with real boots on the ground knowledge. We have a member who is a mental health first aider from the UK. We have a member of the council who is just got her master's in clinical psychology. So it's a great mix of people who have lived experience, but have lived experience and also kind of more academic, practical experience. So, and it's an international group, and that was super important for us because wellness means something completely different in different areas of the world. So we are a council, we are not a committee, and that's an important distinction, is that we are a sounding board and a resource, but we're not in there preaching or producing sessions or any of that. We are meant to help the division boards, the people organizing events, content providers, etc. So kind of some examples of what we're going to be doing or what we have done. We've done net walking events. So instead of networking and just standing around drinking, it's net walking. And we did one at IAPA Europe. And then we kind of combined the Give Kids the World 5K as our net walking event at IAPA US. And we have more of those planned. Working with the event organizers to make sure, hey, are you allowing enough breaks for fresh air and sunshine? Are you offering non-alcoholic options? You know, there's nothing more frustrating to somebody on a sobriety journey to go to a mixer and to ask for a non-alcoholic option, and they say, well, which would you like, regular or diet? I mean, that's a big buzzkill. So making sure that there are enough non-alcoholic drink options, suggesting speakers, if that's something people want, if somebody's looking for a speaker on a particular topic, hosting roundtables where we can cover different aspects of wellness, be that physical, be that mental, emotional. So just creating a support and a thriving community. My goal is that in 5 years, this council will no longer need to exist because it will be so ingrained in the programming of the Themed Entertainment Association as a whole that we won't need a council to reinforce it.
Clara, that's so inspiring because I have a lot of thoughts on burnout as well. I don't know if you know, but I wrote a book about burnout. Would love to have that as a resource for your group if that's something that would be palatable for you all. But also because the way that you talk about it, saying, I hope that we don't need this in 5 years, right? Because it's so ingrained and wellness is something that should just be on top of mind for everybody. So I love that piece of it. I do think it's very interesting to this point. We've talked about so many great things, but we've not talked about what you do in the industry. So I'm wondering if we should just switch gears just for a second and talk about your work with Adirondack Studios.
Awesome. So I was with, like I mentioned, I was with JRA, and then when it got acquired by RWS Global, was with them for 16 years. And I had gotten to a point midway in the career, again, dating myself, where I realized I had been on the design side of the industry my entire career and really had not explored the fabrication side, the actually making and tools and that side of the creative process. So I ended up through a relationship with Michael Blau and some of the people at Adirondack Studios, Tom Lloyd, ended up getting hired at Adirondack Studios as their first ever global marketing director. So in 50 years, Adirondack is celebrating 50 years in business in February of 2025. There had never been a marketing director because they had relied on word of mouth. And the way I was able to kind of convince them that they needed a global marketing director, because that was the first part. I had to convince them that they needed this department at all, and then convince them that it should be me. So in convincing them that they needed a global marketing director, I said, being a best kept secret is probably not the best growth strategy for the next 50 years. It's gotten you this far, and that's great. But as you're thinking about, as Keith James would say, chasing new windmills, expanding into new verticals and new regions, it's probably not the best approach. And they bought it. So they hired me in October of 2023. And it's been a great ride. For those who are unfamiliar with Adirondack Studios, it was founded in 1975 as a boutique design and fabrication agency for a company for opera, for live performance. So our ethos, our roots are in theater and opera and dance and live performance. From there, we started getting into the corporate trade show market, touring exhibitions, ice shows. And it was through the ice shows that we started to get noticed by the theme park industry, the Disneys, the Universals, Sesame Place, Busch Gardens. And it has just grown and grown and grown from that point. So we do everything from concept design, technical design, estimation, all aspects of fabrication, art direction, and project management. We have locations in upstate New York. We have 126,000 square foot shop, which is our global headquarters in right outside of Saratoga Springs, which is a beautiful area. We have 58,000 square feet in Orlando, right by the airport and near the parks, which is very convenient. We have a design studio in Pasadena, California, which the team has doubled in size in the last 12 months. So we have a great group of designers out there. And then a 26,000 square foot shop in Dubai that services the EMEA market, as well as points beyond APAC North America, and business offices in Singapore and Shanghai. An incredible group of 300 of the most talented people I've ever come across. So I consider it an honor, really, to get to tell their stories every day.
Excellent. One of the things that you've been involved with at Adirondack is the Make a Scene campaign, and I'm wondering if you can tell us about that.
Sure. So I was looking at the variety of work that we do, and I started thinking, okay, how can I package this? How can I, because there wasn't a consistent brand, a consistent message, because they hadn't had a marketing department or person in 50 years. So I wanted to create this kind of overarching message. So I started going through, okay, we make metal work, we make museums, we make brand experiences, we make corporate visitors, and then it started getting more and more esoteric as I went along. Like, we make memories, we make laughter, we make joy, and then it just hit me in the face. We make a scene. So, pro tip: if you have what you think is a brilliant idea, and you have to present it to the president and the co-founder of the company, get every other executive person's buy-in first, because then the president and the founder can't say no. So there's their free advice from me to you. So I went around to each of the executives, the VPs, and said, hey, am I nuts? Is this a good idea? Unanimously, everybody loved it. So I go in and I do my spiel, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make a scene. And I looked over at Tom Lloyd, the co-founder of the company, with a slight bit of terror in my eyes, waiting for a response. And he turned to me and he goes, ooh, that's cheeky. I love it. And I probably breathed for the first time in a month. And then I turned to Michael Blau and he said, "Is it copyrighted?" And I went, "Oh, it's the one thing I didn't check." So I get on the trademark office website and it wasn't. So we are now in the process of trademarking Make a Scene, which we're super excited about. But I was shocked, frankly, that nobody had thought of it before. So Make a Scene is more than a tagline. And it's more than a marketing initiative. It really is a reimagining of the culture and how we talk about our culture. So there's three components to it. There's We Make a Scene, which is celebrating the talents of those 300 people that I talked about. People who work in metal, soft goods, paint, project management, sales, CNC, I'm electric. I'm sure I'm missing some, but we all make a scene. Every single one of the 300 of us makes a scene, not just the people at the top, not just Michael, not just Tom, not just the VPs, everyone. And to that end, we have created a series of people profiles where we do 90-second to 2-minute interviews on our YouTube channel of every single person who wants to do one. Everyone from the executive assistant all the way up to the VP level. And it's a way to showcase the talent and the personality of our global team. So that's just one example. Another example is our satisfying videos. If you've ever seen satisfying videos of people painting or washing a window or mowing their lawn or icing a cake, they're super popular on YouTube, and my kids love them. They will sit there and watch them for 45 minutes, an hour, whatever. And I was sitting there watching them with them one time, and I was like, oh my goodness, we have 300 people that create amazing stuff every day. Why are we not capturing this? So every other week or so, we release a satisfying video, and we recently released a 13-minute compilation of all of the videos that we recorded and edited in 2024. So you can find all of that on our YouTube channel. Part 2 is Make a Scene with Us. And that is when we are talking about recruiting fresh talent into the company. So really using in particular our Instagram as a recruitment tool. And we've done things like create PDFs of tips, the 5 tips to project delivery success, or the 5 ways to make your portfolio shine, as a way of showing potential recruits that we care, that we want them to join us, that we're a good place to work. So at this point, we've highlighted the employees that we currently have. Recruits see how well we showcase our employees, so then they want to join us. And then clients, potential clients, see that we have happy employees that they want to work with and collaborate with, and that we are attracting the best talent in the business and becoming an employer of choice. So it's all additive. And then they make a scene, and we make a scene together with whatever type of project that they have in the tank. We've produced 5,000 projects in our 50 years in business, and that number is just growing. So it's an exciting time for the company, and looking at where we are now and what the next 50 years are going to bring. But this Make a Scene initiative is really drilling down to saying to our team, we appreciate you, we see you, and we want to recognize you publicly because we wouldn't be here without you.
That's really fascinating. And it sounds like it kind of covers all those bases, right? Like it sounds like some organizations may talk about their employees, or they may talk about their customers or their clients, but you're kind of bringing them all together in one campaign, which is really, really cool. One of the things that I wanted to kind of maybe pull back the onion a little bit, as Josh and I like to say, is you entered the company with no marketing department. And you basically said, I need to do this. This is what we're going to do. What was that first, I don't know, week or month like when you were kind of the first person in there doing it, like, how do you start? Where do you even begin on that journey?
So I will say I entered JRA with no marketing department. And when RWS acquired JRA, they had no marketing department. And none of their subsidiaries had a marketing department. So I became the new marketing director, building from scratch, not just the 4 subsidiary marketing departments of RWS, but also the global brand as well. So going into Adirondack, creating a department from scratch is kind of actually my happy place, because you have a blank piece of paper and anything is possible. You're not hung up on this is the way it's always been, because there's no roadmap. But what was critical to me, being at the time a one-woman band, is making people understand that this was about them, that this marketing, this new change in the company was about showcasing them and not about a money grab or showcasing the execs or any of that, and making them, empowering them to be ambassadors for the company. And within a quarter, I would say that the majority of the 300 people at Adirondack felt like they were part of the team. And one of the great things that happened is I needed video help. And I couldn't produce all of these videos myself. So I worked with our creative director, Jeff Davila, to empower his creative team to become my videography team. None of them knew Premiere Pro. So they have all learned Premiere Pro to support me. And now they have that skill in their back pocket to use in their creative endeavors and when presenting to clients. So it was this kind of symbiotic, it's beautiful kind of symbiotic relationship that happened between creative and production and marketing that still continues today. They're the editing team. They create a lot of the graphics that you see. But what's awesome is I will get an email or Teams from Miles, who's our metal department 4-person in Adirondack at the headquarters location, and he'll say, "Hey, I would love for my team to be interviewed." Or I'll get something from our site charge artist in Florida that says, "Hey, I caught this cool piece of content on my camera. You know, can I send it over to you? Let me know what you think. Maybe this could be in the next satisfying video." Or a piece of content from Dubai. So there's this kind of process now, this kind of organic process that has developed where everybody is filtering content to me, which is great because I cannot be in 6 places at once. But it's been lovely that they are an extension of the marketing team in that way.
Clara, this is all so fascinating, and I feel like our time is flying by here. We only have a few minutes left, but we definitely can't get out of this interview without talking about the unfortunate interaction you had with a reindeer in Finland during the 2018 TEA strategic planning meeting. So please help us understand what that unfortunate interaction was.
So I was on the international board of the TEA. I'm actually on the international board of the TEA now. I was previously on the international board for 6 years. Then you have to step off and take a year off before you get reelected. So it was 2018, and every year we have a strategic planning meeting. And that strategic planning meeting is usually held in the continent where the president of the board is located. So David Wilrich was the president of the board of the TEA at the time. And so it was hosted at Santa Park in Rovaniemi, Finland. And when I tell this story, I just want to make sure everyone is aware, this was one of the best work trips I have ever taken. If you have never been to Santa Park, do yourself a favor, absolutely go. It's gorgeous. We saw the Northern Lights. They treated us like absolute royalty. It was fabulous. I cannot say enough wonderful things about that park, the hotel we stayed in and everything. So the frontline staff at Santa Park are elves that never break character. And part of the VIP experience that they offered us as industry folks was elf training. So in order to become an elf, you had to engage in different activities like writing cards or making cookies, etc. One of those was reindeer training. So we went out to a reindeer farm, and there was an oval track, and you had to get on a sled, your traditional rosebud type sled, and make it around the track pulled by a reindeer, and then you could check that off the list as completing your training. And everybody else, you had a partner, and everybody else went around the track successfully, no issues. Michael Blau, who had no idea at the time was going to become my boss 7 years later, 6 years later, got on the sled with me, and we got the demonic reindeer. And before we could even fully sit down, he took off at blazing speed, made a bank turn around the first corner, and sent us flying off the sled, slamming into the snow. We were dazed. We kind of shook the snow off, walked the rest of the way around the track, and we're like, okay, we survived. That's enough. And they said, oh, no. You have to make it around the track successfully to get this badge for your elf training. Oh, okay. So we had, everybody's watching us and laughing. And so we had to get back on the sled, and we're thinking, well, they'll be merciful and give us a different reindeer. No. They gave us the same demonic reindeer as before. So we just held on for dear life. By the way, we are in head-to-toe snowsuits because it's February in Finland. So we looked like Randy from A Christmas Story. And so we're in these head-to-toe snowsuits, just gripping for dear life on this sled. And he again takes off at full speed, makes that bank turn. We hold on for dear life. And luckily, we did not have to repeat it a third time because we made it around the track. Later that evening, they did another VIP experience, which was a blind taste test. So we were in this teepee type arrangement, seated at long tables, and they blindfolded us and had us try different Nordic meats. And they revealed that reindeer was one of the things that we had eaten that evening. So there was a little bit of retribution, a little payback in my mind from the unfortunate incident with the demonic reindeer. So that is a special moment that Michael Blau, who has been my friend for 15 years and is now my boss, and I will always share of that lovely time in Finland. I had head to toe, I had shoulder to ankle bruise on my side for the rest of the trip. But for the memories, I guess it was worth it.
Absolutely. And now the story that you can tell for the rest of your life. Right?
Indeed.
And thank you for sharing it with us. That was fascinating. And Clara, this whole conversation has just been amazing. So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. If people want to learn more about you or Adirondack Studios, where would you send them?
For Adirondack Studios, our website is wemakeascene.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want to search out me personally or get in touch with me, the best way is probably through LinkedIn DM. And so that's how you can reach either me or Adirondack Studios.
Excellent. Clara, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for sharing so much. I have also eaten reindeer in the past as well, so I know what it's like. I know what it tastes. I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know if that's okay or not, but where was I? I was in northern Italy. It was reindeer polenta, and it was on the menu in a restaurant. So I'm part of the club, I would say. But once again, this has just been so amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.